Good evening, everyone, and welcome to New York Metro Weather's long-range forecast discussion. It's been about a week since we've talked with you guys, or maybe a little more than a week, about the pattern. And in our last discussion, we actually said that we thought that the pattern was going to hold and not change much over the next week or two, and it turned out to be a pretty decent forecast as the pattern has remained generally intact and we haven't seen many changes. So we're going to take a look here right now at the GFS initialization or 12-hour forecast height anomalies at 500 millibars in the middle of the atmosphere. And we can see that not much has changed since we last spoke. We still have a large polar vortex over central Canada, the Davis Strait, and into Greenland, which is keeping the NAO positive. The Atlantic Ridge, which is here over the north central Atlantic, has not moved much. It's a pretty anomalous feature, but not much has changed. The vortex over Greenland and the Davis Straits is not really allowing that ridging to build in towards Greenland. We also have another ridge up here to the north, which is fairly anomalous. But again, this polar vortex is such an anomalous feature that it just is not allowing anything to really change. And we'll loop through, and you'll see that this feature is just really sitting there and continues to be reinforced over the next. This is, I don't know, about 5 to 7 days out. Not much is changing here. I mean, look at the pattern over the eastern United States, and you can see there are a few reasons why this is happening. We have the vortex back over Alaska. Not a vortex per se, but very low height anomalies. You can see a few members here on the right showing with 498 heights, and that in itself is poor. But the Pacific is responding a little bit. We have a ridge here on the west coast and some lower heights in the southwest U.S., but the height anomalies here on the east coast are so high because the southeast ridge is able to flex its muscles with that configuration and the big polar vortex over Canada. So there's plenty of cold air over Canada, and it's not really been able to work into our area during that time period. Now you'll notice there is a brief signal here around 168 hours for the ridge over the west coast to actually build down south towards the Rockies, and a trough build here towards the eastern United States as energy comes out from the southwest U.S. Despite the lack of blocking, there is a potential to get a storm system off the east coast, although I would say it's probably more likely that if the storm does form and mature, that it will track too close to the coast to bring any wintry type precipitation to most of the people in our area. So that's the general pattern, and we really, this is, we're rolling forward here to 200 or so hours, which is far enough out to begin with. But we'll look even further than that for the people who are really hoping for snow. We'll take a look here. This is the stratospheric warming, and this has been talked about and driven into the ground. You can see here the temperatures. This is the 2011-2012 temperature, the red and pink line. And then the green line, the blue line is where we were last year. The dark colors are generally within the averages, and the mean is the black line. So we're definitely below average, but we're not. The stratosphere is not as poor. It's not totally unbelievably terrible right now. It's just, there's cold air. There's a vortex, and we look here at the 30 HPA temperature at 30 millibars. You can see, look where the vortex is. If you're looking at the United States perspective, you're going to have to tilt your head to the right. And here's the United States, and up here towards Canada, here's Greenland. And you can see that this pattern is pretty locked in right now. You want to roll forward out to 240 hours on the Euro, and you can see the comparison in the two maps. There's some slight and gradual warming going on here. This is well to our north and west. But nothing really dramatic happening here at 30 millibars. There's nothing to write home about as far as movement of the stratospheric vortex when you look at 30 millibars. However, if you look at 1 millibar, you can see here's the current analysis, and then we roll forward. There is some significant warming occurring, but obviously you're telling yourself, okay, so there's warming occurring at 1 millibar. It hasn't propagated downward to the troposphere yet. So that's something to keep in mind. This is not a dramatic stratospheric warming event. It seems to be more of a gradual process, and it's going to take some time. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I don't understand why we continue to see forecasters, and I'm not trying to call anyone out. I'm just, I guess, questioning the method as to why we continue to see forecasters really hammer down the the general idea that we're going to be seeing a pattern change. I mean, we heard it was going to happen on December 15th, and it didn't happen. Now we're hearing around Christmas time. I mean, it's just, you don't get that polar vortex over Canada and Greenland and the Davis Straits until we get this warming to get there and help split the vortex, to rip it apart. It's not going to move, and we're not going to get blocking over the higher latitudes until that happens. So without the blocking over the higher latitudes, of course we can get snow. It can happen. It's not totally impossible. But we have to look for the rest of the pattern. We have to look over the Pacific and the Atlantic and how the southeast ridge is responding. So let's take a look at the MJO forecast. This is from the European ensembles. And you can see right now the MJO is very weak. Forecast to hang around here in the circle of death for a few days before it ejects out to the east into I would say maybe a weak to moderate MJO. I mean, it's not anything total dramatic. We can see here back over early December we had a more moderate phases 4 and 5, so we're inside there. But in phases 4 and 5 once again, and then forecast to loop back again, which is probably one of the worst things you could see here if you want snow, because you want to get this into phases 7 and 8. So what are the phases 4 and 5 height anomalies? Here they are, the 500 millibar geopotential height composite anomaly for the phase 5 MJO, and you can see historically things make sense here with what we're seeing on the forecast models. We have higher heights over the eastern United States, lower heights over Canada, and wow, what a surprise, right near Greenland, very, very low heights. You also notice how well this is going to match up with the forecast ensembles. We'll take a look at this right here. It's almost unbelievable when you loop it out here and you go further into the extended and you take a look at what's going on. We have the higher heights over the northeast. Try to take a mental picture. Just to the east of Greenland we have the most anomalously low heights. There's a little bit of a ridge to the north near the pole, and back towards Alaska there's more negative height anomalies. And look at this, what a surprise. It's just amazing, because here is exactly what the MJO composites are pointing to generally through the middle of January. So we have the lowest height anomalies here, and it's just amazing how well this matches up. The slightly higher heights near the pole, let's just flip back to this for 1 second. The slightly higher heights near the pole right here, and the lower anomalies stretching back towards Alaska and the Pacific, and here it is. So really, I do think that we're pretty much locked into this pattern until probably the second or third week of January, when we'll hopefully start to see some changes. Hopefully for those who want snow, we'll start to see some changes as far as the stratospheric warming goes. We can get that to propagate down to the troposphere, and then we could begin to see some changes as we split that vortex. But again, looping through this pattern, it's not overly exciting. One thing we will talk about, we'll give you guys a little bit of excitement. I decided to do this in the last second, so I'm going to have to pull up the maps here. We'll talk about this storm threat here towards the end of the GFS before it truncates here. We see this threat. We talked about it earlier as the ridge. Watch the ridge here over the Pacific. It kind of collapses to the east and ends up over the Rockies for a brief period of time. And we get a short wave coming down over the central United States. There's plenty of cold air over the northeast, and even a briefly semi-supportive ridge trying to build into the northwest Atlantic. I mean, this vortex is so relentless over central Canada that it's such a short window to try and get a storm to come up the coast at that time. But I guess if there is a tiny little glimmer of hope, it would be here. But you would need things to go perfectly. And if you get a phase here with any short wave from the polar vortex, that storm is going to amplify and come right up the coast, and it's going to be rain for everyone involved. So I guess it's just a glimmer of hope as we move forward, because I personally don't think that we're going to be seeing any major changes in regards to the vortex over Canada, or the pattern as far as high latitude blocking goes until the second or third week of January. So not much has changed with the forecast. We just figured we'd give you guys an update as to where we are as far as when we're going to be experiencing winter weather. There could be, there's still going to be plenty of shots of cold air, I guess generally behind storm systems. And I mean, there's plenty of cold air over Canada now. I mean, it's building up with that huge vortex that's been sitting there for a few weeks now. It's forecast to do so for another, I guess, 2 weeks. And then I definitely would say that whether or not we get a very, very anomalous block, I think we're going to start to see some more ridging build into the higher latitudes as that vortex splits up over Canada in the middle and towards the end of January, we could start to see some more threats for snow. So it's going to be another 2 to 3 weeks for those who are looking for snow or trying to anticipate when the snow will come into the forecast. Until then, the weather will remain active, but it doesn't look like snow is going to be a big part of the forecast until the middle of January. So we'll keep you guys updated. Make sure to stay in contact with us on Facebook and Twitter, and we will talk to you guys very soon.